with, I'm the largest individual taxpayer in history. So I paid $10 billion in tax, over $10 billion in tax. You're welcome. Like I sort of thought maybe the IRS would send me like a little trophy or something, Yeah, like one of those, like, doesn't have to be expensive. It could be like, one of those like things you get for when kids win a karate competition, like little plastic gold trophy or something like that, or a cookie or something. But I didn't get anything. It's like, and but I was happy to pay the taxes. I don't mind,
Good morning, everyone. Elon Musk, of course, being the best. I hope you guys are having a great morning. We're going to be joined by Col Joe Adams here in just a few moments. I'm just testing. I've been having some little technical issues this morning. Hopefully you guys can hear me because I cannot hear myself. So hopefully you guys can hear me. But I do hope you guys are having a good morning. Good morning, Rob. Already on the line with us. That was Elon Musk, of course, because people are deciding, are you Team Musk or are you Team Trump? So I guess we all have some decisions to make in the coming days and weeks. Good morning, Tammy, Jerry, Hoover. If you guys can't hear me, please let me know. I'm guessing that you can. I cannot hear myself, which is really strange because I could, and then all of a sudden I couldn't. But either way, Col Joe Adams with the Washington Guard going to join us in about 1 minute. We're going to jump into a lot of different topics today after we're speaking, of course, to Col Joe Adams. Going to catch up with him and see what's going on. Donald Trump this morning vowing to stop Mamdani in New York City, who, of course, won the Democrat primary by 56% of the vote. And I don't know, I mean, he's not a shoo-in necessarily. He is not necessarily a shoo-in because it could be a situation where Donald Trump is probably going to really try to rally, of course, Republicans in that area, New York City, to get out and vote. He only won the primary by 56%. So there could be a lot of New Yorkers, a lot of Democrats in New York who decide to vote for the Republican, candidate in that race. So we'll keep an eye on that. Good morning, Linda. Good morning again, Tammy. Jerry Hoover, thank you for letting me know you can hear me. Good morning, Dottie. So let's grab Col Joe Adams. I'm going to see if he's ready back in the wings. It looks like he is. Let's grab Col Joe Adams with the Washington Guard. Good morning, Col Joe Adams. How are you doing this morning?
Good morning. Another day in paradise.
Well, I hope you're off to a better start than I am this morning. I've been having all kinds of problems. What's on your mind today? What's going on with the Washington Guard?
Well, we got some communication problems out here. They keep switching towers. Some of this goes back to the tornado damage with these towers out here. So last week when we kept getting things broke up, so I talked to some people and it's about the tower switching signals and all that, whatever that stuff means. So anyway, so my wife told me to just keep speaking if we get that.
Oh, there we go. Our first freeze.
What? Yeah, I see it frozen. Tonight they had ladies' night at the range, and girls all went down and shot what do they call themselves, La Femme Fatale, and they all had a good time, and all the girls did really, really well. My Lady Guard militia, they're really coming along. People that started with no skill now are actually sharpshooters, and a lot of my women today they had a good night. Hey,
I've heard this. I've heard people talk about your wonderful ladies and their abilities.
Yeah, I don't know where I would be without the Lady Guard. Hey, I was listening to News Talk the other day, and they kept and the one thing I learned about the city of St. Louis Sheriff's Department operates the state there just for a concealed permit before it concealed. So the sheriff's position in the city of St. Louis, they're peace officers. People don't understand that. City of St. Louis do not have the authority to arrest anybody. If somebody's causing a problem in City Hall and they they can detain them, and then the city comes in and arrests them.
Right.
But the St. Louis Sheriff's Department are not law enforcement. They manage the jails and they do security at the city buildings, but they don't have power of arrest. And News Talk missed that. So haha, News Talk. Anyway, so
You're so funny.
Yeah. There's a lot
and there's
on.
been a lot going on, with that situation, with that sheriff, and he was arrested, I believe. And I read the story, I looked over it, since I have a lot of listeners all over, the country, all over the world. I didn't really focus on it too much, but I'll tell you, I know a couple of people who work there at the St. Louis City Sheriff's Department, and I think they all agree that this guy's got to go.
Oh no, he's a disaster. But he is he's a direct reflection. They're all that way. So
yeah.
Anyway,
yes.
We're better off with the state running the sheriff's department down there in the city of St. Louis. They're a disaster. They're a train crash going someplace to happen. Hey, let me comment on this Democrat policy up in New York. This a blatant communist running for mayor, right? He's Islamic extremist too. He's a Muslim. He's Islam, and he's a communist. Now, in 1980, hearings, before I'm going to get the rain through me. He's my president. But to have a full White House stationary. You get to see that. But also, somebody said this during my 43 years of penitentiary. Plans at me this, and I'll read this from John Kennedy. We at our command to prevent the establishment regime in the 18th, 19th century. Now, here's the president saying, no, we have a regime that Cuba supports us. But yet now it's okay if they run for office. Just by him being a communist should keep him even use.
Oh, I think we're frozen. Well, Colonel Adams, I don't know if you can hear me or not. We can't hear you right now, but yes, Mamdani has to be stopped. I don't know how Donald Trump plans to stop him, but we're going to have to come up with a solution. We've lost Colonel Joe Adams. Hopefully he'll be popping back in here. Here he comes to us now. Let's see here. Or nope, he'll be there in just a moment. So yeah, I don't know what's going on with that whole situation with Mamdani in New York City. He is an Islamic extremist. He's a radicalist. He is a communist. Anytime somebody wants to come in and say the government needs to run the grocery stores, that's exactly what communism is. And not to mention the fact that there's already a no-go zone in New York City, and we expect that to expand. So let's bring Colonel Adams back into the show. Sorry about that, Colonel Adams. I know we're still having some internet issues this morning. I'm not sure how to fix that, but can you hear me right now?
You're good. We're communists. Yesterday, no communists, right? Now we got to run for. They admit they're communists. Not only a communist, crazy, but fortunate, and you got this all figured out. First of all, let me just say, now I know why the Democrat Party is so bizarre. Everything they do is wrong. Everything they say is wrong, anti-American. And here's why. Then I'm going to tell you this. You're going to think I'm crazy. That's okay. I've been called worse. Then I'm going to explain why they do what they do. The Democrat Party is a mutation of the evolution of politics in this country. They're mutants. Now, how I got this idea, the other night I was set up late and I was channel surfing and Schwarzenegger's movie come on, Total Recall. And it's about a Mars population, a settlement, and some of the people mutated and got disfigured. And I said to myself, those people remind me of the Democratic Party because they're a bunch of mutants and they're deformed. But I'm telling you, this is true. And in fact, I'm preparing a big speech about this. And the topic is the mutants inside the Democratic Party. Now, we have mutants inside the Republican Party also, but we call them rhinos. So what's happened, just like human beings, Homo sapiens evolved, that they had a Neanderthal and we had the Cro-Magnon people, and all of a sudden now we come up with the modern Homo sapiens. Everything's evolving, everything's changing constantly, just like the Earth. So what's happened is we have a constitution that was set by our forefathers, our fathers, especially the first. So somehow, some way, somewhere along the line, the Democrats differently than normal people. They're mutants, and their policies are mutated. The First Amendment for a reason, and that was to protect our liberties about talking, but when the colonists couldn't speak out about the tyrannical British government, they were persecuted. So they put that in there first. And the First Amendment is there for a reason. First of all, freedom of speech. But now the Democrats of that are actually using it against the Constitution. Genius. They're mutants politically.
No question about it. We see that every day, don't we?
Every day. There is no other explanation. These people actually believe what they're saying because they're mutants. They have mutated the Constitution and reinterpreted it. That's where it's at.
There's no question. And the situation that's happening in New York City with Mamdani, that's happening all across the country. There's a guy in Colorado who is very similar and has similar values. And I'm like, we've got to do something to stop this. I think Donald Trump needs to ban Sharia law in the United States. And if you ban Sharia law in the United States, that pretty much stops it in its tracks. It doesn't stop radicalism or terror attacks or anything like that. But I don't understand why he has not tackled Sharia law or these no-go zones. I'm hoping, I think Colonel Adams is frozen there for just a second, but I'm thinking that we need to try to do more in contacting our local and, statewide representatives. Let's reach out to members of Congress. Congress is completely ineffective, even under Donald Trump, completely ineffective. They are doing nothing. They're silent. Have you ever heard Congress so silent? They are saying nothing. They are doing nothing. And I don't think that we can count on them. It's like I would like to say, well, we can reach out to this person and reach out to that person, but there is no one that we can reach out to because no one is listening to us. I don't know if I've ever been through a time in which I really felt that our Congress was so incredibly ineffective. And I don't know if it's because they're scared of Donald Trump. I mean, look what happened to Thomas Massie. Not that I like him or not that I agree with him, but he spoke up against, of course, Donald Trump, and of course got blasted and threatened. And you just don't stand up to Donald Trump, and that's okay. Most of the people I think on Congress should agree with Donald Trump. But however, how do we even know? Because they're not talking. They're saying nothing. We lost Colonel Joe Adams with the Washington Guard. Hopefully he'll be back with us. If for some reason he cannot get that situated, then of course we'll have him next Wednesday and we will try again. I know he mentioned some tower issues there in in Franklin County, in the Washington area. So we'll see what happens. I know they had a lot of storm damage that could affect things. So sorry about that for anyone trying to tune in and hearing what the wonderful Colonel Joe Adams has to say. But if he wants to join back in, we're always willing to give it a shot. But yeah, I agree with what Colonel Adams, was saying. Um, we've got to stop these people. We've got to stop the radicalists. We've got to stop the communism in its tracks. Now, how we do that without banning Sharia law, I don't know. We talked about this, I don't know if it was, I guess, last week. I don't understand why Sharia law is even a thing in our country. We have our own judicial system. Any person living within the bounds of the United States should follow the United States, the American Constitution, and the American way of law. But people who are living under Sharia law do not do so. And some people say, oh, yeah, well, they still have to follow our courts. No, they don't. They absolutely do not. They have their own judicial system, they have their own civil system, and, to some degree, their own criminal system because they don't report crimes in the same way we do. They have homicides and rapes and all these other situations that occur. They just don't report it. They take care of their own business so that the rest of the world doesn't know, and so that regular law enforcement doesn't get involved. And good morning, Cindy. I may have missed some of you. Good morning, Karen. Good morning, Cindy. Good morning, Bill Robinson. And Bill says, could you imagine if we came up with a no-go zone? There would be hell to pay. You are absolutely correct, Bill. And what I don't understand is why Donald Trump in his second term is allowing these no-go zones to continue. And Robert, no-go zones should be illegal. You're right. They absolutely should be illegal. Is that a state, city, or federal issue? States should defund cities if Sharia law is imposed or practiced. I agree, Robert, and we're seeing it in, parts of Michigan, Dearborn, Michigan, New York City. What is that city called in Texas? Well, it's happening in a couple cities in Texas. Josephine, Texas, and Beaumont, Texas are big areas of Sharia law. And I've heard there's a tiny no-go zone in Columbia, Missouri. I've not personally seen it, cannot confirm that, but that's what I've heard. And it absolutely should be outlawed. It starts at the city level, but ultimately it should be a federal problem because they are not following any federal mandates. They are not honoring the Constitution, and it just shouldn't be allowed. And to your point, if we, let's say, conservatives, let's say we blocked off. I decided today that I'm going to block off let's say a 3-block section of my town, my neighbors and I, and we're going to declare it the no-go zone for MAGA or America PAC, whichever one you want to side with. What do you think would happen? Well, we already know because Joe Biden told us, remember? He said your AK-47s are not going to be enough to stand up to the United States government. He was speaking directly to us, to conservatives. And he said that we would be facing hellfire missiles, is what he said. So if we conservatives decided to institute our own no-go zone, I think we know what would happen to us. We wouldn't last. And I know Jay said they didn't do anything to stop the Chaz takeover out in Seattle. I believe that was in Seattle. You're absolutely correct. And a person did get shot and killed within that Chaz area. And I don't understand why we don't do more. And who seriously, who can we even ask? If you have a problem right now, let's say somebody sets up a no-go zone in your own community or any problem in your community, who are you going to go to? So let's say you go to your local representatives. They feel powerless. What are they going to do? I'm going to call up the president. They don't have direct access to the president. They might have, let's say if you reach out to your local Congress member or House representative, yes, they have a little bit more say, as in they can talk to people about it. They cannot do anything about it. This has to come from the very tippy top and make its way down. And, and I'm not trying to, again, down Donald Trump. I know he's very busy making peace in other countries. He doesn't have time to worry about little us old Americans here and some of the issues we face on a day-to-day basis. Congress is 100% ineffective. I don't know if you guys, again, have noticed the same thing I have. Like I said earlier, they are completely silent. We hear nothing from anyone in Congress. I've heard maybe one little peep out of Marjorie Taylor Greene, maybe two little peeps out of her. Outside of that, I haven't heard one single person say a word. Nothing. Nobody's fighting for us. That's pretty much what it comes down to. And Dottie says our own government is not following the Constitution. No, they're not. And Dottie, who's driving the bus? Well, I'm starting to wonder who's driving the bus myself, quite honestly, because right now I don't feel like there's anybody driving the bus in America. I feel like there's a lot of people driving the bus in other countries, but what about us? What about us Americans, right? What we need and what we want. You know, I guess you probably know this. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. The dollar, it is down 11%. Now, that has nothing to do with Donald Trump. It was in that trajectory for a long time over, at one point, it was like 34% down, over like a 10-year period. Just since the beginning year, it's dropped another 11%. And it's dropping quickly because not too long ago, if you guys recall, I reported that it was down by 9%. Now it's down by 11%. And that's a really big deal. Again, like Dottie said, who's driving the bus? What are we going to do? Probably time to abandon the US dollar, as much as I hate to say that. It's on a decline. It's not going to get any better anytime soon. And I think Donald Trump knows that. I think that's exactly why he is so into cryptocurrency. A lot of information back and forth about crypto. Donald Trump, of course, attending all of the Bitcoin conferences, and he has spoken at some of the Bitcoin conferences where there was one not too long ago where it was the Bitcoin miners. They come together every year, and he has spoken at that convention. And Shelley says, "Oh, you are seeing it." Well, Shelley, I'm assuming you're talking about Congress or who's driving the bus. I'm not sure, but if that's what you mean, I definitely see it. Robert says, "Dollar is down, is why gold and commodities are up." You got that right. Just like we said yesterday, Texas Governor Greg Abbott putting the power back to the people with, telling businesses that they have to honor your gold or silver if you bring it in. And I'll tell you, I've been going on a lot of these auction sites, and you see anything made out of silver or gold, people just go crazy for. Crazy. If you got a silver pendant, guess what? Somebody's going to buy it. And I'm thinking, you know what? I've got a little smelter that I bought a while back, and I haven't really done anything with it, just kind of holding on to it. And I thought, maybe I need to go into these auctions or wherever I can find them and start buying silver. And, it's hard to find gold in these auctions because people probably don't even bother, entering it into the auction. They just keep it for themselves, but, or sell it to the highest bidder outside of an auction. But I see silver fairly often. I mean, why not just start buying this silver if you can get it for a decent enough price and melting it down yourself and making your own little silver bars? Silver is actually gaining more than gold right now. It's probably going to surpass it at some point. Gold, of course, continuing to go down. And I mean, gold continuing to go up. What am I talking about? Gold continuing to go up. I remember I don't know, a couple months ago, gold was like $2,500. I can't recall. I think that was for a small, was it a 2-ounce brick, a 1-ounce brick? I can't recall. But now up over $4,000. It's doubled, just in the past couple months. So I think that speaks volumes, absolutely speaks volumes. And, we face a growing threat all the time, not just from candidates like Mamdani, not just him. What we do face, though, is we've got a lot of enemies. As a matter of fact, I want to show you this video. Speaking of enemies, and speaking of Robert brings up China, Robert says China has turned to platinum instead of gold for jewelry. So expect platinum to now go up. Yeah, I have mining stock in platinum, copper, silver, in gold, and they are the only stocks that I have that are actually doing pretty good. The rest of my stocks have not done well at all. And I think my stocks actually did better under Joe Biden, because under Joe Biden, I was buying what the Democrats were buying. So, of course, their stocks were doing great. Now, under Donald Trump, the Democrat stocks are dropping. But I want to show you Excuse me. I'm sorry. I hope I don't start coughing like I did yesterday. I want to show you this video from China. This is crazy. They're calling it the Blackout Bomb. You know, we talk about threats and all of the things going on in the world. We have the Blackout Bomb by China. I'm going to show you this really quick, and then we're going to bring, I believe Colonel Adams is waiting back in the wings. We'll bring him back in to talk about this Blackout Bomb, because this will blow your mind. And don't think that our enemies don't have something up their sleeves. Colonel Joe Adams back with us again. Colonel Adams, I don't know if you could see that video of the Blackout Bomb, China's new weapon, but obviously our enemy's goal is to take out our power grids, because if they take out our power grids, we'll do the rest ourselves. We will self-destroy from within.
Yeah, there's been different versions of that out for quite a while, in fact, for the last 30 years. So yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. And most of the technology comes out of China, because they know how fragile our infrastructure is in our grid. Very, very fragile. So yeah,
Yes,
I would. That's what I would do. Yeah. Of course, we got the same thing with them too. We can cut their comm anytime we want to. Yeah, it's a dirty, dirty trick, but that's unfortunately it's a part of warfare. So
it is. You know, we always face a threat. You know, look, Colonel Adams, I don't know if you know this, Pakistan, of course, has creating missiles with a nuclear warhead that can reach the United States. Not surprising, of course, but Pakistan of all countries.
Yeah, they're no threat to us, but it's a matter of time before India and Pakistan is going to take the gloves off. And it's just a matter of time. They hate each other.
Well, and they hate each other, but see, I do think Pakistan is a growing threat to us because, and I'm sure you know this, but Pakistan, they have become a new Islamic caliphate. You know, the terrorists have taken over Pakistan, and they do have nuclear weapons. And Pakistan, just like what they're doing to, of course, India, they're trying to radicalize India as a country, because it's still part of what we were talking about before, is radical Islam continuing to grow. And it is absolutely running rampant in Pakistan right now.
Well, Pakistan's already played both sides. I mean, don't forget that Jimmy Carter had Pakistan develop the Islamic movement in Afghanistan. I mean, not the Islamic movement, but the Taliban. I mean, the Pakistanis built the Taliban.
Yes. And of course, well, look where Bin Laden was hiding, in Pakistan.
Right, right. So they've played both sides constantly. But the problem here is one rogue general. It doesn't take a country to launch a missile. One rogue general could do something over there and cause problems and upset the entire world global peace deals with the nuclear devices. Yeah, one rogue general. In fact, Russia has taken heavy steps to make sure one of their generals don't get out of hand and launch something that we don't like. Hey, but we were talking about communism. Mm-hmm. I'm going to make a statement about communism, and people need to understand this. Of course, you can't have communism without socialism first. Now we got this guy in New York who says, "Yo, I'm a socialist, I'm a communist, and I'm also Islam." Islam's number one thing is death to America, right? So they're using communism as a part of Islam now to infiltrate politically and be accepted. It's, Islam is a form of communism to the extreme.
Yes.
Now, understand this. One thing that all communist countries and regimes have had over history, they have one thing in common. You know what that is? I'm asking people, do you know what the one thing in common in communist countries is? Eventually they kill their own citizens. That's how it evolved. People go to socialism because they get free stuff up front. They bait them with free stuff. Well, eventually, as they suck them in, they get more and more control over the state-run grocery stores. What the hell is that? Communist countries eventually kill their own people. How many millions of Russians did Stalin kill? They're all the same thing. Fidel Castro, how many did he kill? It's all China, communist country, where they all got. The one thing they all have in common
I believe Colonel Adams has frozen for a second, but he's absolutely correct. It is the one thing they all have in common. And I'm glad that he made this point, because it is one thing that I was going to say before I got off on another track, is that yes, Sharia law and radical Islam, or just really just Islam in general, it is very similar to communism, very similar to socialism. They run under a socialistic type of order. And so I'm glad, Colonel Adams, that you pointed that out, because that is absolutely correct. And Mamdani, he talks about these, government ran grocery stores. We all know, obviously, clear socialism. What he's not telling people is they're going to turn that into a halal food markets, and you're going to be very limited in your choices. And he's probably, what do you think, Ron? Do you think he's going to win? I mean, can you imagine New York City voting in a Republican mayor? I don't see that happening. So that means he's probably going to win.
That's simple. They are different, not only on different democracy and Republicans in this country. So yeah, I almost wish it on the New Yorkers. Ban Sharia law. Why do we have to ban Sharia law? Goes that the dictators are allowing to happen. That's the problem. These people don't think of us. They're not only the Constitution, they use the Constitution against us. Policies of the Democrats. These people are protesting for God and for the Hamas are a product by the Democrats. It's that brings eventually this country the real patriots of this country are going to go to war in these borders. So we're in a time in history.
Happen sooner rather than later.
Yeah,
I agree.
I hope it will be around to participate. But and the other thing is, Trump is the greatest threat ever to the deep state. They still got to kill him. All these things are connected. These deconstruction the first there is no one flag, one language, democracy, First Amendment, but they twist it around because they're the best thing I have on this app they've got people that is in the area. Well, ISIS fans, I'm sure ISIS out there is second half all over the place. People that thought
Colonel Adams, I hate to interrupt you, but we can't hear anything you're saying. And so I don't know what's going on with the internet situation, but everything you're saying is very broken up. And so I would like to comment on it, but I don't know what you're saying. I'm not sure if you can hear me or not.
Yeah, we'll pick it up next week.
I'm sorry, Colonel Adams, I can't hear anything you're saying. But we'll figure it out. We'll bring you back next week, and hopefully whatever it is resolved by then. And so that's Colonel Joe Adams of the Washington Guard. Colonel Adams, I apologize that we're can't hear you today, but we will be sure to reach out to you next week, and we'll talk about this after the show as well, and see if we can come up with some common solutions to get the situation fixed. But I appreciate you coming on today. We love you as always. Colonel Joe Adams, of course, with the Washington Guard, has so much valuable information. We just can't hear him, unfortunately, but we will get it sorted out. I will work with them, and we will get this sorted out. And Lori, let's see here. Yeah, I know that somebody like Colonel Adams said it's something to do with their towers in their area and storm damage and that type of thing. So we'll see if we can get something worked out, and it could be just there, might be just a very rural location. It could be just a bad internet connection. I don't know. I don't know, but we will get it sorted out. I know it's hard and thank you for hanging in there with us. I know it's really difficult because we want to hear everything he says, but we can't hear anything. It's just kind of little bits and pieces here and there. So I love Colonel Joe Adams with the Washington Guard. If you want to reach out to the Washington Guard, you can do that at WashingtonGuard.com, and we will get it sorted out. I promise we will, because we want to hear what Colonel Joe Adams has to say. And so thank you guys for hanging in there with us. And let's see here. Good morning, Michelle. Good morning, Glesna. And hopefully you guys are having a good morning. Good morning, Mary. Yeah, you're only hearing a word every once in a while. Yeah, I know, Mary. We are going to work it out because what Colonel Joe Adams has to say is invaluable. So we will try again. We'll try to work it out between now and next Wednesday, and hopefully we can figure out some way to bring Colonel Adams on. Maybe I'm not sure how, but we'll figure it out. We will figure it out. I'm going to talk to them about what their internet connection is and see if we can sort it out from there. So something that I also want to talk about today, we've talked a lot about Donald Trump versus Elon Musk, and that has heated up because DOGE, I'm kind of surprised by this. DOGE has turned on Elon Musk, at least one member of DOGE. And, Elon Musk stated that the big, beautiful bill passed, he was going to create his America First super PAC, America First. And he was going to make sure that any Republican who in the past talked about and lashed out at government spending he would make sure that they never won another seat, that they better just retire. And trust me, I believe he will do it. I believe he'll do it. We know Donald Trump kind of, went back at him and said, hey, maybe we'll deport Elon Musk. Maybe we'll seek DOGE on Elon Musk. And Sherry says the deep state got him. It may be the deep state. They don't want us to hear what Colonel Adams has to say. So I'm not sure if you've heard of James Fishback. I never had, well, maybe, I don't recall, but James Fishback was one of the advisors for the Department of Government Efficiency for DOGE. Well, in retaliation for Elon Musk saying he was going to start this America First political party, well, James Fishback decided to start his own party. And I'm not 100% sure what this stands for. He's calling it FSD PAC. Maybe, I'm not sure what FSD stands for. So he said that this was to counter Elon Musk's political antics. And it's kind of interesting. It's FSD PAC. It was launched yesterday on July 1st. This is what he stated. He said, if Elon actually launches a new party to take down Trump, I'm starting a super PAC to defend the MAGA candidates he targets. Now, I don't think that Elon Musk is targeting Donald Trump. I don't think he's going to do anything that could cause Donald Trump to be impeached, and nothing along those lines. But I think that what he is going to try to do is eventually, of course, these folks in Congress are going to be up for re-election, and I'm siding with Elon Musk on this issue because, while the big, beautiful bill has some really amazing pros, really amazing things in it, a lot of what we actually did vote for, that part is great. There's a reason why Democrats didn't protest, right? Because we know anything we want to do that's for America, they're going to protest. But they didn't. They didn't protest at all. In fact, the bill passed. And it's got to make you wonder what all is in there. We don't know the cons for the most part. No one will tell us what the cons are because we're not getting that transparency that we would like to have. Where are those 1,000 pages? Why can't we look through them? Why doesn't anyone tell us the cons of this big, beautiful bill outside of the nearly $5 trillion we're going to be in debt? Now, I believe Donald Trump when he said that in the long run, it's going to help America. It's going to hurt at first, but in the long run, it's going to help America. If there's anything Donald Trump is good at, it is the financial aspect of running a business. He runs this country like a business. I do think he knows what he's doing, but I do wonder how much Democrats got away with under the radar that we don't yet know about, because again, we're not getting that transparency we once got. Congress is silent. Not one person outside of Thomas Massie has said one thing about this big, beautiful bill because they're too scared to. They're too scared to rise up and say anything. And Bill says, oh, we are taking it in the shorts. Two wings, same bird. Bill, I don't want to agree with you. I don't want to agree with you, but that's all I'm seeing right now. I hate to say it. It's all I'm seeing right now is a uniparty. That's not what we voted for. That's not what we want. I don't want a uniparty. I don't want Congress to agree. I want Republicans to fight for us and to make sure that nothing goes into these bills that we would oppose. Now, there's some really great things going on. You said is no more. They're not currently funding anyone, which is a positive. Jay says short-sighted is the debt. Long-term growth is what they're. But no, I agree 100% with you, Jay, that we have to trust the process with this big, beautiful bill. It has passed. There's nothing we can do about it. There wasn't anything we could do about it, whether we liked it or not. There was nothing we could do. It certainly had a lot of positive things, but we don't know the negative. Again, I would like to see some transparency. I'd like to see both sides. And Jay says, until they get rid of special interest groups, the lobbyists, new party or not, nothing will change. 100%, Jay. Correct again. Correct again. The special interest groups still rule the day. Lobbyists still rule the day. And they're still running our government. And, I know Donald Trump right now has on his plate world peace. Donald Trump knows that this is his last years as president. He wants a legacy. He wants to create what his future legacy will be. And I feel that his future legacy is he wants to win the Nobel Peace Prize. That is his primary goal. And I think that his secondary goal is of course, making sure that we Americans have things right here in our own communities. I wish it were the other way around, but every president has their legacy that they want to go down into history. And I'm just keep hoping that as soon as he creates this world peace, peace in the Middle East, which will never happen, he's got another ceasefire, in the books, 60-day ceasefire between Gaza and Israel. I don't expect that to last. We've got the ceasefire, of course, between Israel and Iran. Again, how long is that going to last? He's got a deal in the works between Russia and Ukraine. So those are going to be Donald Trump's three big accomplishments. He's going to see this big, beautiful bill as his fourth big accomplishment in his term. And let's hope that it plays out the way he expects it to play out. Lori says, can we talk about what Democrats have lost since DJT has been in office? I truly want to know facts. I keep seeing how devastating their lives have changed. Have their lives changed? I don't know, Lori. You might be able to tell me because I don't know. I honestly don't know. The only thing that I see with Democrats is that, they've lost a lot, when it comes to Planned Parenthood funding, when it comes to I would say the biggest loss Democrats have faced is that you said USAID has stopped funding these NGOs, non-governmental organizations, because now we know through the Department of DOGE, through Elon Musk, we found out the truth. And that was that our taxpayers were funding these people to become billionaires. That was your money. You go to work every day. You work really hard for your money, and your money, a very good portion of it, at least 73, probably closer to 75 cents of every dollar you make is going into taxes. And where are those taxes going? Are they going to fix your roads? Not really. Are they going to schools? Maybe a little bit. It's mostly going to these NGOs. And we know the NGOs are owned by, now some Republicans, but mostly Democrats. And a lot of these Democrats formed, I almost think of them as like shell companies. They formed these NGOs, a month ago, 2 months ago, 3 months ago, 5 months ago. And then all of a sudden, the United States government under USAID were funding these NGOs with millions of dollars. And they're not even a real NGO. It's just some person, Democrat in Congress or Democrat in either Biden or Obama administration or the Clinton administration, including, by the way, including Chelsea Clinton, who, what did she get? Like $81 million from USAID. I mean, that's the name of the game, and I think the biggest way we have hit back at Democrats is canceling all money going out of USAID and going to these different NGOs. And that is exactly why we saw that come around full circle with these NGOs funding the rioting that was taking place across this country. They are still funding it. There's still rioting going on. It's just not in the news anymore. And because we knew that over 250 NGOs came together and funded these riots, they're not done. They're not done. They're going to hit back, and they're going to keep hitting back harder is what they're going to do, because they've lost their funding source. And, I don't know where the future goes, though. I don't, because I'll tell you what, we can sit here and tear the Trump presidency apart, and we can say Trump has done this great thing, this great thing, this great thing. We wish he'd pay more attention to this, this, and this. We don't like that he did this and this and this. But in the end, what's going to happen is that Americans want here and now. We want to see things happen instantly. And I see it every day. I'm quizzing people, and it's kind of a joke, but I'm like, are you Team Trump or are you Team Musk? 99% of people tell me they're Team Musk, 99%. And these are people who I've known for a long time. Some of you are listening to the show. Some of you are people I know just in regular life. And everybody's telling me, you know what? I don't like what I see right now under the Trump presidency. He's focusing on the Middle East and all of these peace talks, but he's not focusing on us and what we need the most. While we're deporting people, we still have crime happening in our cities. We still have people being killed by dangerous gangs. We still have drugs. We still have illegal guns on our streets. We're still worried about terror attacks. We still have terrorist sleeper cells in our country. But these things take time. It takes time to work all of this out. You can't solve crime overnight. You cannot deport every single criminal in this country overnight. It does take time. And I do think that Donald Trump is working on these things. I do, but I don't think it's going to be fast enough for the American people. And I think that if Elon Musk creates this America First party, which I really don't see it targeting Trump, but I do think people are going to jump ship. And I think they're going to jump ship and head to Team Musk. I might be one of those people, quite honestly. I feel like I've already got one foot in that door. However, I am never going to abandon Donald Trump. I think he's the best president we've ever had. I will continue to think so, regardless of a couple little things that I don't like. But Donald Trump, unfortunately, has to play the political game. He has no choice. Now, does he enjoy it? I don't know. Is he doing it for personal benefit? I don't think so. Just like this deal we've talked about with Donald Trump, taking I'm not sure what the word for it is, but we no longer have sanctions, against Syria, who is truly a terrorist country. Talking about, it kills me, it pains me to even think that we're even having communication with a terrorist country, but we are dropping sanctions against Syria, potentially working with them in other ways. It's very upsetting to me. Linda says, still concerned about AmeriCorps funding for my senior volunteer program and all the cuts for seniors. You're right, Linda. Daycare funding for nursing homes. Daycare funding for nursing homes. Our year ended June 30th. We still don't know. We are still going, but maybe not for long. Linda, thank you. That is talking that you're bringing up the point of the cons that came with the big beautiful bill, and we'll talk about that. Let's say Jay says, UPenn striping Leah Thomas of medals and banning trans men for women's sports. Yes, another accomplishment. One of the big accomplishments, of course, so far with the Trump administration, outside of deportations, tackling violent crime, which is all of this is a long process. But of course, the DEI initiatives, ending DEI, huge. I think that goes worlds and worlds, ahead in saving our children. So obviously, that's very, very important. And Jay says everything Trump has done has worked. We just have to trust the process. You're right, Jay. But telling people that we just have, look at Linda. Are we going to tell Linda, well, Linda, you're just going to have to trust the process That's all. People are tired of trusting the process. People want to see action. They want to see the Epstein names. They want to see the Epstein client list, right? We still have Ghislaine Maxwell sitting in prison. And allegedly we have Epstein dead because they were trafficking minors. Who were they trafficking the minors to? Why aren't those people in jail? Why don't we know those names? Will we ever know those names? Nobody even talks about it anymore. So probably not. And Linda, to address your point, one of the downsides of the big beautiful bill is that we have defunded nursing homes. And AmeriCorps, here's the problem with Linda with AmeriCorps. AmeriCorps is owned by the Clintons. It's owned by Hillary and Bill Clinton, and they lost funding because of the USAID stopped funding AmeriCorps, to a large degree. So that's how that came to play. A lot of people don't understand the connection between the Clintons and AmeriCorps. And there's also, just like Obama's have the public allies and Acorn and all these other things in their ring. They don't own those businesses, but they're very heavily involved, whereas the Clintons started AmeriCorps. And so that's the problem there. We talked about this a little bit yesterday, where we know that, Americans were giving free Medicaid services to illegals that are in this country, but yet they voted for cuts to the Medicaid SNAP food program for Americans. So it's really hard to make sense of that. And it's hard for us to know what's going on because Congress, what happened to the Freedom Caucus? I would really like to know where the Freedom Caucus is and why they aren't talking or speaking up or talking to the American people, even if it's positive, even if the Freedom Caucus steps up and they say, this is the most amazing thing. I love this big, beautiful bill. None of them are saying that. None of them. And it makes you wonder, are they too scared to talk out? Did they not like the big, beautiful bill? Are they just happy with everything? So we're just not hearing from them? I don't know. Maybe I'll call them up and ask. We have no one to turn to right now. So I don't think we're going to get any answers out of that. But I'll tell you, and I think you're going to see the trend as well. People are jumping ship. People are looking to Elon Musk for the America Party, and people aren't willing to trust the process, Jay. Unfortunately, it's just the American culture. We want it here and we want it now. We don't want to wait for anything. So we'll see where that goes. I'm never going to abandon Donald Trump. I feel like I can equally split myself between Elon Musk and Donald Trump just fine. I do wish they would heal that rift, though, and they were better together as one team, quite honestly, than two separate entities. But when Elon Musk forms his America Party, if he has or has not, he said he was going to do that yesterday. We haven't heard any official word whether or not he has done that. I know there is an America Party token, an eCoin, that's already being sold. I'm going to buy some today. I've got to track it down. And when I do, I'll let you guys know about that. You can look up the America Party token online. I'm just doing it kind of as a novelty, not for any other reason. I don't even know if it's related to Trump's America Party. I just buy different tokens. So I'm gonna give it a shot. We'll find out later what it's all about. And but Elon Musk right now, what he wants to do with his America Party, he's not said anything about impeaching Trump or removing Trump from office. It's not about that. It's simply about cutting down the federal deficit. And he feels that Republicans who voted for this big, beautiful bill have done a disservice to Americans. So he wants to do his best to replace them. If he calls me and asks me to come in, like I did, getting out the early vote for Donald Trump, you know what? I'm going to be there. I'll go because I'm with him on this. Not in this instance, I am with him in that these people in Congress who are sitting so quietly voted against Linda, potentially having her senior volunteer program funded. There's good with the bad, unfortunately. Same with, of course, daycare, nursing homes, and so on. So I don't know. I would love to know how everyone else feels. I do an awful lot of talking, but no one really tells me how they feel unless I ask them privately, because people, I think, are scared to say, maybe I don't trust the process. I think people are really scared to say that because they feel that their fellow conservatives will turn on them. And I completely understand. I feel that way too sometimes, and people have. When I don't agree with every single thing Donald Trump does, people have certainly turned on me. And I don't feel like it's a bad thing to question our current administration. I love Donald Trump probably than just about more than any other American does, but I don't blindly follow anyone, and nor should you. Nor should you. You should look at the policies, judge on those policies, and leave it at that. So a couple of things I wanted to jump in today before we head out. You know, I wasn't sure if I was going to talk about this, but I thought this was kind of interesting, especially if you're like me, where I've faced some weird health concerns lately. And this is a situation with me, as most of you, if you've been listening to the show, know, where I have an undiagnosed condition. My doctor says, I've been seeing a lung cancer specialist, but he does a lot of other, lung things too. And he's like, it could be lung cancer. It could be histoplasmosis. It could be a bacterial infection. Something's going on with my lymph nodes and my, nodules in my lungs and so on. But he literally has no idea. I've got to go back again for another CT scan on August the 4th. It is affecting my heart. I've been having these, if you guys are familiar with arrhythmias, I'm having what they call long QT syndrome, along with SVT and atrial fibrillation, all this other crazy stuff. And so I'm going in for a heart PET scan soon. I had an appointment on July the 4th, and they changed it to the 11th, and now they have to redo it again. So I'm waiting to hear back from them because they've had some emergency situations. But I don't know what's wrong with me. So Microsoft has come up with a program, an AI system that will diagnose your medical condition. And doctors that have used it have actually been absolutely thrilled. Now, I don't like anything to do with Microsoft, quite honestly, but this is probably the one situation in where I can see AI being able to make a diagnosis for someone, because the doctor's putting in the symptoms or putting in your test results, and a doctor, when a doctor is trained, of course, there's only so many things they can learn, so many things they can see. Like this lung doctor that I go to, when I had this weird gram-positive cokie that came back on my biopsy, he said, I've only seen that once before. And, he's thinking about it as a medical mystery, a puzzle that needs to be coming together. But this AI program, you put it all in there. The AI does the thinking for the doctor. And so far, all of the research that's been done has been very positive. In fact, they said that the AI diagnosed someone 4% higher than the doctors they tested did, which I thought was pretty darn interesting. And if you go online, there's a Symptoma. And if you go to symptoma.com, you can do the same thing. You can put in your test results, you can put in your various symptoms and that type of thing. And then Symptoma will tell you a number of different conditions you might have. And I'm thinking that it probably works very similar for these doctors, where they put all of this information in. So some people don't want AI to handle anything. We don't trust it, blah, blah, blah. But I do trust it when it comes to these diagnoses. Mr. Parnell says, everyone needs to focus on Congress and Senate. The president has little control over either one. I don't know. He had an awful lot of control over this big, beautiful bill being passed. So we will see how that works out. And let's see here. I don't know how much more I really wanted to talk about today. Oh, before we go, I did want to give you some information on that America Party token, because I don't have any way to put this on here, but it's the $ AP. That is the name of the token. It's the America Party token, $ A like Apple, P like party, America Party. And so I should have just said A, American, so not Apple. So it just kind of across my mind, that's what AP stood for. I'm a little behind today. And so, we'll pick up. We got a lot more to talk about tomorrow, of course. We got a lot in. We'll talk to Col Joe Adams, of course, next week and see what he's got to say. I had something else I was going to show you guys. Oh, you know what? The only other thing I was going to talk about today was that deal with Donald Trump, of course, winning that lawsuit against CBS. Now, I've heard differing reports. Somebody said they settled for $16 million. Somebody said it's going to be $30 million or more. I don't know what the final settlement was. Hopefully we'll find out, and see what it is. And I wanted to talk maybe tomorrow. I still haven't seen mainstream news talking about the Idaho shooter at all. I don't know if you have. It has been so quiet, and I don't know why. I don't know why. I don't watch mainstream news. I read it, but I haven't heard a peep out of them. But either way, we will have more to talk about tomorrow. we'll sort out things with Colonel Joe Adams of the Washington Guard. Very thankful he was able to join us today, even if we couldn't hear him. Still happy to have him. And I do hope you guys have a really fantastic day. I am Tabitha Hassell with Tabs on Tap, and I will look forward to seeing you all tomorrow.